Just a heads up, we'll get started here in just about a minute or two. We're just waiting to make sure we've collected everybody from outside and that everybody's got a chance to get into a seat and get comfortable. It's nothing like being a buzzkill, I know, but, you know, something. Let's see. We all set? All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Maine Jewish Museum, the home of Etz Chaim Synagogue, for what is our 5th induction ceremony in the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame. I'm Erwin Gratz, past president of Temple Bethel, and I'm pleased to once again this year be here to tell you about some of the fellow Jews who've made great contributions to the lives not only of their fellow Jews, but of many folks across the state of Maine and beyond. They've accomplished so much. I'll only have time to give you a hint of their amazing works. You'll find much more complete descriptions in the program books, which you all received. This year's ceremony will induct 6 individuals plus a husband and wife combination. Before we begin, I want to have you join me in thanking the sponsors of the event. Without their generosity and support, today's festivities would be difficult to accomplish. Please join me once again in thanking our naming sponsor, Dorothy Susie Osher, who in 2019 named this event, as well as the beautiful Hall of Fame exhibit on the 3rd floor in memory of her husband, Alfred Osher. We'd also like to thank our premier sponsors, Dan and Julie Kagan and the Bernstein Shore Law Firm, our diamond sponsor, the Ruth and Robert Feingold and Jerry and Lou Lucas families, our gold sponsor, Coffee by Design, our silver sponsor, King Weinstein, Nancy Ziegler and Kermit Lopez, and the Holocaust and Human Rights Center of Maine. Please join me in expressing our appreciation to all of you. We'd also like to thank all the advertisers who are in our program book, as well as all the members of the host committee, which was co-chaired by Jeff and Paula Feingold and Mark and Kathy Aronson. And thanks once again to all of you for making today possible. It's my pleasure now to introduce the new president of the Maine Jewish Museum Board, Bob Hirshon, and the executive director of the Maine Jewish Museum, Dawn LaRochelle. They're going to say a few words. Bob became president of the museum in January of this year. He was born and raised in Portland, practiced law here for 30 years. He's a past president of the Maine Bar Association and the American Bar Association. Bob was president of the Maine State Bar Association, Maine Bar Foundation, and American Bar Association. After his ABA presidency, he was chief executive and chief operating officer of 2 large firms on the West Coast, before returning to his alma mater, the University of Michigan, to teach for the last 15 years. Bob retired in May of last year. He remains a member of the board of Pine Tree Legal Assistance and president of 2 Maine-based foundations. As for Dawn, she became executive director of the Maine Jewish Museum here in 2022, a graduate of Harvard Law School. Prior to coming to the museum, she was at the Center for Women in Enterprise in Western Massachusetts. And prior to that, she was ESL department chair at the McDuffie School in Granbury, Mass., developing community engagement and management skills gained as a restaurateur and caterer, during which she was named Who's Who Restaurateur of the Year. And you've all just sampled some of Dawn's outstanding culinary skills at the reception. Please welcome Bob Hirshon and Dawn LaRochelle.
So I'm Dawn, not Bob, in case anyone was. So first and foremost, did everyone like my food at the cocktail hour? Yay! So, sorry, Jewish mothers and all that. In all the thank yous, by the way, one thank you that I think was not mentioned is Rabbi Gary Berenson, who always manages to bring sunshine for our Hall of Fame events every year like clockwork. Yesterday it poured, today sunshine. It's Gary. So back to our regular programming. Today we come together to celebrate our newest inductees to the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame stands as a living tribute to resilience, vision, and the unwavering commitment to justice and loving kindness. The individuals we honor today have not only achieved greatness in their own right, but have also strengthened the very fabric of our community. And what a time to celebrate such extraordinary lives. In recent weeks, I don't think I need to tell you, the worldwide Jewish community has faced heartbreak and unimaginable challenges. 2 back-to-back anti-Semitic terrorist attacks and murders, less than 8 weeks after the attempted murder of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and his family. The weight of such hatred is heavy. But history reminds us that Jewish resilience is stronger still. We Jews do not simply endure, we rise, we build, we create, and we illuminate the darkness with unwavering light. And that is why today is so powerful. Because our Hall of Fame inductees, with their courage, creativity, and compassion, are proof that goodness prevails. Their stories are beacons guiding us toward a world where love triumphs over hatred and hope outshines fear. So, let today be a declaration. Though anti-Semites might seek to weaken us, they will never silence us. We will continue to lead, to educate, and to inspire. And we will keep lighting candles in the dark, forging a path toward a brighter future. To our inductees, thank you for your service, your vision, and your unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Mazel tov, and may your legacy shine as a reminder that light always overcomes darkness. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We have a wonderful executive director. I now have the opportunity to introduce someone who needs no introduction, Stephen Brin, who has been the president of this organization for many, many years, more than I can count, and who has also been the chair of this event for many, many years, again, more than I can count. One of the things I've learned in following Steve is that he is a perfectionist, and on top of that, he leaves no stone unturned. Indeed, this is the script that he gave me and others to follow. Steve knows that I'm not going to follow it. In fact, the last time I had a script in front of me was when I was trying out for the senior high school class play at Portland High, and that was many, many years ago. One of the real reasons, though, that I would not follow Steve's script, and do not intend to, is because I knew, and I turned out to be correct, that Steve would be way too modest in what he wanted me to tell all of you about him. So in my own words, let me just suggest to each and every one of you that Steve is the heart and the soul of this museum as it exists today. It would not exist today in its present form but for Steve Brin. This event would not exist today but for Steve's desire to see what other jurisdictions, what other states were doing to honor some of the people and the folks that we're honoring today, and finding that there were other programs in other states and deciding to bring one of those programs to the state of Maine. But Steve doesn't just deal with the large picture. Many of you walked on the brick walkway, memorializing, I think, a number of individuals and a number of events. One of the things that I'm not going to follow Steve in doing was he was actually the bricklayer for all of those bricks. So it is really with a sincere amount of pleasure and a little bit of trepidation, since I'm following in his footsteps, that I introduce Steve Brin.
That was a little too much, but thank you, Bob. I got to find my glasses, which I've already lost. I had them 1 second ago. Hold on. As Bob was talking, I was shrinking into my seat, and my glasses fell out of my pocket. So, as you can tell, the museum is in wonderful shape to have Bob and Don leading us into the future, and I couldn't be happier to have Bob follow in my footsteps. So, thank you, Bob and Don. And it's also great to have Don being a professional caterer and having a husband who's her sous chef who comes to every event, and they love to do this. So thank you guys for doing that. I also want to thank Erwin, who's sitting over here. You've been our MC for all 5 years. You've been here from the start. Thank you so much, and you do a great job. Thanks, Erwin. So to our 2025 inductees with us here today, Ellie Miller, Billy Miller, Leah Binder, and Harris Glickman. To inductee family members of Abraham Rodman, Louis Skolnick, and Edith Pagelsen. To all our friends and supporters, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2025 Maine Jewish Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I'd also like to recognize several special guests here today with us. We have several current Hall of Fame members here today. And after they stand, if they will, when I call their name, let's give them a nice round of applause. Here with us today are Hall of Fame members David Brennerman, Gary Berenson, Kenny and Mary Nelson, Lenny and Merle Nelson, and Jerry Goldberg. Thank you all for being here. And one other person I'd like to recognize, who Bob was not totally correct in that the Jewish Museum would not be here if not for me. The real person that would not be here if she didn't start it is my wife, Jody Sateloff. Jody, can you stand up? So as Erwin mentioned, this is our 5th induction ceremony. And as Don mentioned, is in most parts in the world right now, being Jewish is not being celebrated. And in fact, quite the opposite. But right here today in Portland, Maine, we are indeed celebrating and honoring what it means to be Jewish. And what better time than now to celebrate the inspirational lives of our 8 inductees. There's really something special about this class of inductees. The outpouring of love, support, and enthusiasm that people have generated about these 8 people has just been really overwhelming. So it's really been my favorite class, and it gives me such a great feeling that we're honoring them. And I don't get feelings very often like this in life, except maybe at a Grateful Dead concert. But thank you all for everything you've done. You're great role models to all of us who for us to try to lead our lives with a passion to leave the world a better place than we found it. You serve as great examples of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, and we are thrilled to be able to honor you today. So, as I said, today's the 5th Hall of Fame induction, but it's the first time we are presenting the Affinity Award to recipients Pam and Kevin Ryan, who will be introduced a little bit later by Jessica Lantos, our program director, chair of our programming committee, actually. Jessica created and championed the concept for this special award, and she'll tell you all about it in a few minutes. Thank you, Jessica, wherever you are. So the main reason I'm standing here talking to you is there's also a lot of people I need to thank, several who Erwin mentioned, and also Don and Bob. But a couple more that I need to thank. A special thank you to Harold Pagelsen, who is our keynote speaker today, and you'll hear from him shortly also. It's always a pleasure, Harold, to have you here. Welcome. And thank you, Harold. And this event wouldn't happen at all without all the volunteers who were working here downstairs today, which you saw, and who are still down there working, cleaning up, and also our nominating committee, several of whom are here today. They did an excellent job of nominating and voting for the people that we're honoring today. So, thanks to all of you. And then, just 2 or 3 other people I need to thank. Tom Berman, who's hiding behind the screen here. Tom has spent pretty much the last 48 hours in here creating all the technology for this program and putting it on YouTube. And he and Gary Berenson have done all the work behind the scenes to get this building ready for this event. So thank you both. And the last 2 people to thank, Jill Silander, who's not here today, but she is the one who has created this terrific booklet and has done so every year. And thank you, Jill. And finally, none of this would have happened today without our new admin, Rick Tenzer, who's in the back there. Rick's daily focus on the details really got us to this point. So thanks so much, Ricks. Thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it. And enjoy the program. Back to you, Erwin.
Thank you, Steve. Give me a second here while I get up. Believe it or not, I actually don't do this from memory. Okay. My next task is to introduce our keynote speaker, Harold Pagelsen. He is a founding partner of Pretty Flaherty, a veteran having served as a lieutenant aboard a U.S. Navy transport ship. He became Associate White House Press Secretary under President Lyndon Johnson, serving as principal aide to the White House Press Secretary Bill Moyers from 1965 to 1967. Harold left the White House in 1967 to become attorney advisor to the Secretary of the newly created Department of Transportation, where he used his skills to negotiate with state and local governments throughout the U.S. to resolve federal and state public policy conflicts. In 1969, after 8 years in Washington, he returned to his home state of Maine, began his law practice in Portland. Harold is a past president of the Portland Symphony and a former trustee of the American College of Greece, the Maine College of Art, the Maine Maritime Academy, a past director of the Portland Boys Club. Harold was also chair of the Cape Elizabeth School Board and formerly served as a member of the Legislative Committee of the United States Olympic Committee. He was nominated by President Clinton and then renominated to serve as a member of the U.S. Commission on Public Diplomacy, including a stint as chairman. The commission and its Washington staff advised the President, Secretary of State, and Congress on public diplomacy programs carried out by the State Department and U.S. embassies around the world. But there's more. Harold served as chairman of the Maine Democratic Party and was the Democratic nominee in Maine's 1st Congressional District in 1980. Born in New Haven, Connecticut, grew up in Cape Elizabeth and graduated from Princeton in 1959, earned his law degree at Georgetown University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Harold Pagelsen.
Can you hear me? Is it clear? Yeah? Okay, good. I like that. Steve You clapped for me before I even spoke. We're going to find out whether they clap after I speak. It gets harder over the years because you don't see as well, you don't stand as well, you don't remember as well. So it just gets more difficult, doesn't it, David? Thank you for the honor of participating once again in this wonderful event, recognizing these people who have brought honor and distinction to the Jewish community of Maine. I say once again because I have spoken at this event, this particular event, previously. I think it was the first one. And I have stood in this place actually on several other occasions since the time many years ago that Rabbi Berenson called me one late September day and said, Aaron David Miller was supposed to speak at its time at Rosh Hashanah, but had called in sick, said he had laryngitis. Oh, what a shame, Gary. You'll find a replacement. You, he said. But Gary, I'm not Jewish. You will be on Monday. And so it was and is. Not long ago, Jamie Isaacson, who's here today, came to my office to ask me to participate in a symposium this fall on anti-Semitism. Perhaps he was aware of my previous appearances here when I suggested that it might not be considered authentic for a non-Jew to talk about anti-Semitism. He exclaimed, "What? You're not Jewish?" I prepared some remarks, but when I arrived here today, I saw Patty Reef, and it triggered a story. I like stories. And it triggered a story about the first time that I spoke to a Jewish organization in Portland. It was in the late 60s. I was working at the White House, and my father called me up to tell me, to ask me a question in behalf of Patty's uncle and Nancy Davidson's father, Sidney. He said, my friend Sidney wants you to come and talk at the men's breakfast at Temple Bethel on Sunday morning. You pick the time and come up here. We haven't seen you in a while. So I came, and I was escorted to the breakfast by Sidney, who I'd known my whole life, and by his friend George Lewis. So we're there at the breakfast, the men's prayer breakfast, and I'm introduced by a man who was the president of the prayer breakfast, and I began speaking, telling him what was happening in Washington, and I was maybe 3 or 4 minutes into it, and this guy stood up and said, "Thank you very much, Harold. That was very interesting." So Sidney Davidson was sitting next to where I was speaking, and I looked down like, what am I going to do? And he looked over at George Lewis, and he went, "Getting out of here." So I sat down, and he said, "We're leaving." And out we went. George Lewis, Sidney, and me left the place. And I'm not sure that Sidney ever forgave the guy for shutting him off after I'd come up from Washington. Airfare, all of that. But anyway, the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame features Mainers who are representative, and I really mean that. They are representatives of all of you. They are representatives of the Jewish families who settled in Maine in the late 19th century and early 20th century. They were street peddlers, rag merchants, junk traders, and they were engaged in the selling of clothing, new and probably mostly secondhand. Some settled in Bangor, some settled in Portland, actually just down the street from here at on Hampshire Street, which was the center of the Jewish community. And it was, if you go down there at the corner of Hampshire and India Street, you're really in the center of what was the Jewish community. And I read a book that Patty Reif shared with me about the history of Jews in Portland area, published in 1955, written by a fellow named Benjamin Brand. And he said that this area down here, this neighborhood, was known in Portland as the Jewish Quarter, because this was a Yankee town, and this was a large immigrant population and neighborhood down there. But others went to live in places other than Bangor and Portland. Like the grandfather of my late dear friend, Bob Smith, the well-known Boston lawyer. Saul Smith left Poland and settled in the tiny town of Patten, Maine, near the wilderness surrounding Mount Katahdin. He purchased a horse and wagon, and every week went deep into the Maine woods, peddling pots and pans to the French Canadians working in the woods. Saul, this fellow from Poland who went into the woods most days, sent his two sons to tiny Patten Academy, and then to Bowdoin College. And years later, his grandson, Bob, gave several $1 million to Bowdoin College to create, in honor of this particular peddler, Saul Smith, the Saul Smith Student Center at Bowdoin College. I like this story because it is emblematic of the Jewish story in Maine. No ethnic group, and I want to emphasize that and repeat it, no ethnic group can match Maine's Jews in the level of education, to our state, all by the descendants of these Maine Jewish immigrants, the peddlers. Not even close. Frankly, Maine's outstanding cultural environment and institutions would hardly exist but for the incomparable contributions of our Jewish community, the kids and grandkids of the peddlers. And as I look out here, many of you I know, and many of you I know contributed greatly to the growth and health of cultural institutions in the state of Maine. Looking at you, Lenny. So it goes on and on with the Jewish community in this state. The same can also be said for Maine's private colleges and hospitals. What would our state's public institutions look like without the singular contribution of Maine's Jewish community? I love reading the biographies of the members of the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame, all very high achievers, which I might add, it's been obvious to me for my whole life, is an ethnic trait. You will never have a shortage of excellent candidates for this honor, no matter how many years it goes on. This year, two of them, Charlie Miller and Louis Skolnick, were my contemporaries and friends. I reminisce a little bit because my dear friend Shep Lee grew up in Lewiston and went to Lewiston High School, and so did Louis. And they played tennis all the time, and Shep had a tennis court, and I played tennis all the time. So I saw a lot of Louis at Shep's court. The lawyer thread in all of this is important to me. I came to practice law in Portland in 1969 at the firm founded in 1910 by Jacob and Edward Berman. When I arrived, just Jake's son-in-law, my friend, the very learned Sid Wernick, was left, along with my lifelong 60-year friend, David Cohen, who's sitting in front of me. I am proud of the Berman heritage. Saya Berman, I discovered by doing a little reading, Saya Berman, Jake's father, was one of the early Jewish immigrants to this area around 1870. And he was, I found out, David, a Talmudic scholar. You didn't know that. He had 4 sons. 2 constituted the firm of Berman in Portland, and 2 constituted the firm of Berman in Lewiston. The brilliant and successful Berman brothers are in my personal Maine Jewish Hall of Fame, and they are the founders of my law firm. Congratulations to this year's Hall of Famers and their families. You join a special group of achievers. Beyond that, you and all of Maine's Jewish community are joined together in a tradition, which tradition is instructed by the Jewish Bible to take responsibility and pursue social justice. And that's why you have done what you have done and do what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Is it any wonder why we keep having him back to talk to us? It's now my pleasure to introduce Jessica Lantos, the Program Committee Chair. She's going to say a few words about our inaugural Affinity Award. Jessica.
In 2017, 2 Maine music teachers collaborated with the Holocaust and Human Rights Center of Maine, a professional producer, a sound engineer, and 400 choral students to record and release a one-of-a-kind album called Songs of Darkness and Hope. The tracks include traditional Hebrew music, songs from poetry written and hidden by children in Terezin concentration camp, and Make Them Hear You from the musical Ragtime, which is a universal anthem calling for advocacy and justice in response to oppression and hate. The project was conceived by Pam and Kevin Ryan, who taught choral music for over 40 years to 5th through 12th grade students attending RSU 18, the Messalonsky and China School District in Central Maine. Throughout their years of teaching, the Rhines frequently incorporated Jewish music into their programming. Pam had an idea to bring the entire choral program together to present some of those pieces. She approached the executive director of the Holocaust and Human Rights Center, as their mission is to use the lessons of the Holocaust and other genocides to combat prejudice and discrimination in Maine and beyond. It was a timely request. A few nights before, there had been a board meeting where one of the members, a Holocaust survivor, had said, "We need to get more young people involved in understanding the story." And then Pam walked in saying, "Hi, I have 400 young people." The Rhines then selected the repertoire and rehearsed their various choral ensembles. And when it was time, the album was recorded at a local church where the acoustics warmed the sounds of the high school chamber ensemble, and at Messalonsky High School auditorium, which was large enough to accommodate all 400 students. The students involved with the recording felt the experience of singing and recording these songs increased their understanding of both Jewish culture and the horrors of the Holocaust. One student said, "We were singing words that people who were sent to their death wrote and sang." Another student said the most challenging part of recording the album was learning the Hebrew and Yiddish pronunciations and executing them perfectly so it would sound authentic and be done with the utmost respect and care. Despite the fact that Songs of Darkness and Hope was envisioned as a local production, the album was nominated for a Grammy Award. These past few years, the need for allies has not diminished. As we at the Maine Jewish Museum find repeatedly to be true, it is not just within the Jewish community where we find support. There are allies all around us. And because of that, we have created the Affinity Award to shine a light on those who walk with us, who take time to tell our stories, and to recognize the importance of stepping out of one's own circle and into another with warmth and compassion. The Affinity Award was created with Pam and Kevin Rhine in mind. Congratulations to you both, Pam and Kevin Rhine, from all of us at the Maine Jewish Museum. We thank you for walking with us and for telling our stories.
How do we follow that without tears? Oh, good afternoon. Thank you to Jessica Lantos, Steve Brin, and the nominating committee for the Board of Directors of the Maine Jewish Museum for bestowing this very special recognition upon us. When we were first notified by Jessica that we had been selected for the inaugural Affinity Award, we were instantly honored and humbled. After meeting with Steve Brin and reading the biographies and accomplishments of today's Hall of Fame inductees, those initial reactions of honor and humility are being included in today's ceremony were only amplified. Songs of Darkness and Hope was a project we passionately pursued and were blessed beyond measure throughout its development. First an idea, then collaboration with colleagues, community sponsors, the Maine Holocaust and Human Rights Center, 400 students and their extended families in our central Maine community, as well as our wonderfully generous recording engineer, John Baker from Princeton, New Jersey. Growing up in New Jersey, just a half hour outside of New York City, I personally had friends and neighbors who encompassed a broad diversity of cultures, faiths, and ethnicity. The first bar mitzvah I attended was for a friend who lives just around the corner from my house. My oldest and dearest childhood friend of 62 years, and I'm a little older than that, was the daughter of a doctor who escaped Austria with the sponsorship of his family, along with his sister, just before the rest of his family were detained and ultimately perished in the Holocaust. When Kevin and I attended Westminster Choir College, we were blessed beyond measure to have the opportunity to perform Leonard Bernstein's Chit Chet Stoms with the New York Philharmonic under the direction of Leonard Bernstein himself. His brilliance as a musician and his kindness to a choir full of young college students is a precious memory that I carry with me to this day. As educators, we've always aspired to elevate the knowledge and thoughts of our students through meaningful musical experiences. When we found that our career trajectory in music education had brought us to a small central Maine rural community with more economic than religious or ethnic or cultural diversity, we proceeded to work towards creating special musical learning opportunities. Our intent was to facilitate and expand our students' awareness and appreciation for people beyond their own place in the world by experiencing the music and stories of people and places they might never encounter in a rural Maine community. For our younger learners, this might mean having the story of Hanukkah shared while learning folk songs in the Hebrew language, sung in simple harmonies, and sometimes, if they behaved, even followed up with a serving of latkes and applesauce, including the story about why those foods were attached to the story. The older students we approached covering topics like social justice education, and we did that through Hebrew songs or music incorporating Jewish history or writings that we had researched and shared with them. In all circumstances, we found the students wanting to learn more, to sing more, and through the shared artistry, they began to know and care more about Judaism. Thus, the seed of the project began to germinate in our minds. A recording project that would embody the beauty, poignancy, and truth-telling of Eastern European Jewish music preceding the Holocaust, somehow being transformed and continuing through it, and reflection and hope following it. The project involved 400 plus students ages 10 to 19, none of whom were Jewish, and was supported by a wide variety of community sponsors, including the Oak Grove Foundation, Maine Arts Alliance, the Pleasant Street United Methodist Church of Waterville, and Affetto Records.
I wish all 400 students who took part in the Songs of Darkness and Hope recording project could be here today, just so you could see the look on their faces. They would be beaming. Our collaboration with the Holocaust and Human Rights Center in Maine and Augusta and John Baker of Affetto Records altered the trajectory of this project, which originally was conceived as a local production. In 2017, you can imagine the surprise and delight that reverberated throughout the community when the CD appeared on the ballot for the Grammy nomination. When I questioned Mr. Baker about his efforts towards earning this ballot for a Grammy, stating something like, "John, these are public school choirs from central Maine, of all places. We have singers of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities, and it goes without saying that they aren't all, shall we say, professional singers." His response was, "Kevin, you're missing the point. Its mix of history and music is so unique that it deserves a wider release." All of the students involved attended age-appropriate workshops presented by Elizabeth Hellitzer, then one of the executive directors of the Holocaust and Human Rights Center. Some of the high school students even visited the synagogue in Augusta. Many of these students had never set foot in a church or a synagogue before. Their interactions with the rabbi were so deeply respectful and the questions asked so profoundly answered. For all of us, the sharing by the rabbi of the beauty and the construct of the Torah was a truly special experience. A great opportunity was shared by 40 members of our high school select ensemble when they were invited to perform selections from the CD for Yom HaShoah at the Maine Holocaust and Human Rights Center that spring. Once completed and and produced, our Tri-M Music Honor Society members mailed out a copy of the CD to nearly every Holocaust and Human Rights Center in the country with a description of the project. An 11th grade member of the select female ensemble stated, "Before the project, I was aware of Jewish culture and the effects of the Holocaust, having learned about that in history class. However, by preparing and performing the songs on the album, we got a much more personal account of what really happened. The project really brought all of our previous knowledge into a new perspective." That new perspective that she expressed was far more important to all of us than anything we could have imagined. These 400 students and their community truly stepped out of one's own circle and into another with warmth and compassion. As educators, we were blessed to be able to facilitate that experience through music. Thank you so much for this meaningful and precious award.
Thank you again, Kevin and Pam. We really appreciate it. Hang on a second. Okay. All right, and now on to this year's inductees to the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame, and these will occur in alphabetical order. Starting with Leah Binder, originally from Portland, now living in the DC metro area. Leah is among the most prominent national leaders in the movement to improve hospital care in the United States, serving as president and chief executive of the Leapfrog Group, a national nonprofit watchdog that advocates for more hospital transparency and major improvements in patient safety. Under her leadership, Leapfrog launched the hospital safety grade, the A, B, C, D, or F, assigned every 6 months to hospitals based on infections, injuries, and medical and medication errors. Leah is a regular contributor to Forbes.com and other national publications. She was named on Becker's list of the 50 most powerful people in healthcare and is consistently cited by Modern Healthcare among the 100 most influential people and top 25 women in healthcare. Before joining Leapfrog in 2008, Leah spent 8 years as vice president at the award-winning Franklin Community Health Network in Farmington, now part of Maine Health. Before that, she was a senior policy advisor for the New York City Mayor's office and started her career at the National League for Nursing, where she handled policy and communications for more than 6 years. Leah was born and raised in Portland with her brothers Abraham and Aaron. She graduated from Waynfleet, went on to earn a BA from Brandeis and 2 masters from the University of Pennsylvania, one from the Annenberg School of Communication, the other from the Fels Institute of Government. Her father, Henry Binder, was principal of Falmouth Elementary and Middle Schools. Her mother, Donna, an elementary school teacher. She married another lifelong Mainer, Sam Elowich, in 1997. They have 2 sons, Henry, 26, and Casey, 18. Family does reside in the Washington, D.C. area, and here to accept her induction is Leah Binder.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a really wonderful day for me. It's such an honor. I disappointed my mother by leaving the state of Maine. She never believes anyone who was born here should ever do that. But it sounds like Maine didn't forget me, and I appreciate that. So, so the Leapfrog Group, my organization, is all about making sure that vulnerable people who are in hospital beds right now, as we're gathered together, are not ignored, that they are treated with respect and dignity, and that every minute of the day, someone is watching over them. Because when someone's not watching over a vulnerable patient, they can die or suffer. And sadly, that happens too often already. Patient safety problems are considered the third leading cause of death in this country. They kill over 200,000 people a year. So Leapfrog was founded to shine a light and say, first, the patient should come first, and every minute of every day, we want everyone to do that. And we will, if you're not paying attention, we are paying attention to you. So the best moment for me at Leapfrog came a couple of years ago. So before that, let me go back up 4 years ago, actually. There's a hospital in the Chicago area, South Chicago, called St. Bernard Hospital. They they serve a very challenged community, probably one of the poorest communities in the country. And their population that they serve is a lot of uninsured and Medicaid recipients, almost no paying customers, full paying customers. They have very, very, very few resources. So sadly, we gave this hospital a grade they earned, which was an F. And the papers and the media in Chicago and a lot of the social media was quite angry at us. They said, how can you do this to this hospital that has so many challenges, and look at the population they serve. Don't you care about the population they serve, that you would give them such a terrible grade? And we say, we do this because we care about the population they serve. That's why we do it. And you need to do the same thing. We have to tell tough truths at Leapfrog. We have to do things that are really hard sometimes, and that was very hard. Because as it turned out, the CEO of that hospital was actually, I had just gone to his wedding 2 months earlier. So this was a really hard one for me, but we had to do it, and it was an earned F. So here's where the fun part comes in. They decided that instead of complaining about Leapfrog for more months, they would turn it around. And they did. They hired a cadre of people, and they fired some people, including a very prominent surgeon who had been a problem, which is very hard to do in a hospital. And they completely overhauled how they handled patient safety. And I will tell you, they got it 2 years later, they got an A. And that was on the front page of the Chicago Tribune. It was incredible. And, you know, we think about how many lives have been saved by their turning that around. They did this work. We shined a light on it. And I think that is tikkun olam. That is, every single life matters. And that every move that we make, every time we see the gifts in other people and we respect other people, that is fundamentally, for me, what being Jewish really is. So I gained that from all of you. So many of you in this room I know. I'm so humbled that the Jewish Museum has picked me among this incredible group in this whole room, and especially the honorees today, and Ellie Miller and Charlie Miller. It's just incredible. So, thank you.
Next up is Harris Glickman of Cumberland Forsyth. Harris Glickman was raised in Forest Park and then Bradley Street in Portland. He spent most of his professional life working for the United Nations in New York and Geneva, but remained a Jewish Mainer and returned here in his retirement. Harris's family was active at Temple Beth El, where he remains a member. Harris's Judaism has anchored his strong personal and professional views on social justice. In college, Harris worked as a residential tutor for the first round of the Brandeis Upward Bound program and led hiking programs for inner city students. As a postgraduate, he was director of the Sociology Psychology Facility at Newbury College, teaching U.S. veterans of the Korean War. In his 20-plus years at the UN, Harris contributed to environmental and economic policy making, including the founding Treaty on Climate Change. He was staff at the UN when it was awarded the 2001 Nobel Prize. Harris has written 2 books and wrote or contributed to scores of articles and individuals. Around 2005, Harris started Documenting Maine Jewry, an online repository for Maine's Jewish community history. Early on, the standard response to this project was bafflement, a reasonable response given Jews have never numbered more than 1% of Maine's population, whose children mostly left the state for college and careers. But 2 decades later, we have a rich Jewish cultural life here in Maine, including this Maine Jewish Museum, the Maine Jewish Film Festival, a revitalized Jewish Community Alliance, the Colby University Center for Small Town Jewish Life, a Wikipedia page. Young Jewish professionals are moving here, and there's no doubt that Documenting Maine Jewry and Harris was an early catalyst for this renaissance. As one fellow Mainer noted, no one has done more to collect and illuminate Maine's Jewish history and to present it to the world than Harris Glickman. Harris graduated from Brandeis in 1968, is currently director of Benchmark Environmental Consulting and executive board member for the Foundation for Global Governance and Sustainability, and a board member of this Maine Jewish Museum. He's married to Reva Krut. Their son Rafi works on software coding and lives in Portland with his wife Marie, and their daughter Sophie, and their daughter Miriam lives in Somerville, Massachusetts, teaches sociology in Harvard. In just a moment, you're going to get a chance to see them all, I believe, as we invite Harris Glickman to the podium, please.
Where's the family? Come on up. Here comes the last 2. Thank you very much to the museum for extending me this honor. Become one of the people who are seen as role models on the wonderful collection of people who have received this award before me and who are receiving this reward today. I want to share a little bit of the history of the project of Documenting Maine Jewry, some of its present and some of its future. The project started in some unusual way, which was at Mount Sinai Cemetery, where Steve Hirsch was running the cemetery, and he was saying, who are these people? And since we in our Jewish tradition have a very serious Yortzeit, remember, Yizkor, and he was asking a very simple question, who are these people? And I made a very big mistake. I decided I would try to figure it out. Turns out about 1/3 of the people who were buried there were from outside the Portland area. Why? Because there were no traditional cemeteries in the rest of the state that were not affiliated with a particular congregation. So about 1/3 of the burials at Mount Sinai are from outside the greater Portland area. I had picked up this task because I was comfortable having written databases for the United Nations on subject of multinationals. And while my work there had also invited me to take part in building ways to understand how multinationals functioned and the connections between them. And so I felt very comfortable trying to answer that question, who are these people and how are they connected to each other? You'll meet the next generation again in a moment. My time at the UN focused mostly on international environmental and international economic issues. From the period of about 1890 to 2005, I had the opportunity to participate in one way or another in almost all international environmental negotiations on treaties and conventions and on economic matters. And I'm very pleased to have made a contribution to doing that. After leaving the UN, what became intriguing to me was global governance, how decisions should be made at an international level. We have villages, we have towns, we have counties, we have states, we have countries. How should the next level work? Right now we have multilateralism, which connects states. But there are clearly forces, both in the labor movement and women's movement and development and in areas of racism, who have a central role in actually making global decisions, but de facto, but they don't have formal recognition. And so I moved on to working on what's professionally called global governance. That's a bit of the history. In the present, the software available from the Documenting Maine Jewry project is open to the public who have any ties to the Jewish community in the state. And it serves a lot of functions. I've always been surprised when I see why do people apply to have access. Sometimes it's genealogical. My grandparents used to live in Maine. Sometimes it's quite practical. My parent has passed away and I need to know the name, the Hebrew name of that person's grandparents. And do you know it? And sometimes it's an opportunity to read carefully the publications which have come out of this state, of bulletins, research papers, memoirs, articles in newspapers around the state, which tell a dynamic story of the 9 Jewish communities currently functioning in Maine. And if you step back a little bit, 9, former Jewish communities. There's a bottle of water somewhere here. Excuse me. So in the present, one can, as I was saying, enjoy the literature, the printed material, the audio visuals, the recordings, the voices of chazans on the Documenting Maine Jewry site. For those who are unfamiliar with the site, it has a very difficult name to remember. It's mainejews.org. So please log on and enjoy exploring our history and contributing your own history. It's a bottom-up project. So what's in the future? Tom, wherever he is. Tom, can you show the first slide?
There it is. It's up there.
It's up there. So this was the logo for Documenting Maine Jewry. 3 hands. Sorry. This was the logo for Documenting Maine Jewry. 3 hands, as occasion may be over a prayer book. One set of hands in the middle is my father. One set of hands on the far left is mine. And the other set of hands is this guy. And now can you share with us this sense of intergenerational knowledge that's so important to us. Tom, the second slide, please. And here's the slide, again with a different generation. My granddaughter in the middle, the hand on the right, which you might have thought was my father's hand, is now my hand. And the hand and finger on the left is this little boy's. And that is why, one of the reasons why documentary and jewelry has been such a pleasure for me, is to share this intergenerational history of Portland's jewelry, Maine's jewelry, and the other current and former cities of Maine and their Jewish history. Thank you very much for this recognition. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Great job.
Okay, next is Bernard Billy Miller from Bangor. For the past 50-plus years, Billy Miller has been the Bangor Jewish community's Ubermensch. He was born in Bangor to Abe and Frida Miller and is most closely identified with Miller Drug, a pharmacy that he and his wife, Gloria, ran for 55 years. The roots of Miller Drug and Billy's love affair with the Bangor area began in 1939 when his mother started a family variety store. Family and friends pitched in to help start the State Street business while his father recovered from surgery. The store was an instant success. Doctors and nurses from the nearby hospital, as well as neighborhood kids and families, stopped by for a bite to eat, to sit at the counter, or perhaps get an ice cream float. Billy went to pharmacy school in Bangor and returned to Bangor with a degree and Gloria. I went to a drugstore on Longwood Avenue to get a pack of gum, Billy says, came out with a wife. In 1957, he opened a prescription drug counter at Miller Cut Rate, which grew to be the largest privately owned drugstore in the state. Home deliveries were the norm. Late-night calls for critical medications were filled by Billy that same evening. For decades, he helped ensure Congregation Beth Israel had a minyan twice a day, 7 days a week. He served as its president and has been its head gabbai for 50 years. He's been the Kevra coordinator for much of that time, ensuring families were treated with dignity and compassion when at their most vulnerable. Billy's participation in the community at large is legendary. He was, until his retirement in 2022, a percussionist with the Bangor Symphony and the Bangor Band for 65 years. He served on area hospice and hospital advisory boards, including the Red Cross Northern New England's Board of Directors. As his mother before him, he's been extremely active in supporting Camp Capella, an area summer camp that provides diverse educational and recreational opportunities for children with disabilities. And until recently, Billy worked a weekly shift as a cook at the Salvation Army Bangor's Soup Kitchen. He also served on the board of the State Pharmacy Association, the Husson University School of Pharmacy, the Eastern Maine chapter of the American Red Cross, and OHI, a Bangor nonprofit, which provides housing and financial support for people with disabilities. His philanthropy to area human service agencies, usually anonymously, is nonetheless well known. However, his cavils and joy and success has been the family that he and his late wife Gloria raised and nurtured in their 68 years of marriage, a brood that included 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and at the moment, 3 great-grandchildren. Please join me as we invite Billy Miller to accept his induction.
bittersweet that at 3 o'clock today, one of my grandchildren got married. And a lot of my family are there, and some of my family are here. I didn't divide the family on purpose, but nevertheless, I appreciate the ones that came from away. And before I was given an ultimatum, you to speak 5 minutes, and I'm not used to that type of ultimatum. However, before we start, my prepared text, I need to make a confession to the conductor of the Bangor Symphony Orchestra who is here today. I never told him when he took the job that I couldn't read music. That should tell you, Lucas, why you had to cue me all the time. Because my part was quite obvious. When you heard a cymbal crash in the wrong place, it didn't work out. My special thanks goes to the committee who have selected me and to all those who nominated me. My journey these past 90 years has been a blessing. No one has had a greater journey. I chose the right parents, and they instilled in me tzedakah, passion, sharing, and giving back manyfold. They taught me to care especially for those less fortunate and people with special needs. Also, as I receive this award, they really are the ones that get the award. They're the ones that started me on this journey, and my siblings on this journey. And my parents, Abe and Frida Miller, taught me the art of giving back. When I was a child, a lady came into the pharmacy one day crying. She needed a hospital bed for her husband. So my father said, I'll take care of that. Now, most of you know what they do at Elks Clubs. They play cards. And they raked from the pool, the game that night, and they raked enough money to buy a hospital bed. And as a result, before we became a pharmacy, anytime anyone in the Bangor community needed a hospital bed, we supplied it. And I know because I helped deliver them up to 3 stories around curved corridors. When at night, if someone got ill, I would go back to the store and fill a prescription 24 hours a day, I or a staff member. So, one night I was watching the Red Sox, you know who they are, okay? I was watching a Red Sox game, and it was a tie, and I got called. And when I got called out, I got to the store, and I put the TV on just in time to see this. What was it? That's right, Carlton Fisk. Carlton Fisk was hitting a home run. If the medication wasn't available, we got it. Now that may seem, what do you mean you got it? We did. There was a new antibiotic out. The doctor did a surgical procedure at the Eastern Maine. He needed that antibiotic. I called the wholesaler in Boston. They put it on the bus, and I picked it up at the bus station, and I brought it to the hospital. It wasn't that a hard deal to do. And you know, to this day, that was been the philosophy of anybody that ever worked for me or with me in my pharmacy. Someone said to me, keep this Jewish. Well, everything in my life I did was Jewish. Everything I just said to you was Jewish. But there's nothing better being a Jew than to get up in the morning, put the film on, go to shul, make a minyan, help someone say Kaddish for someone they just lost, help someone make a mishabech for someone that is ill. We all need help. And I find our rabbi is here today, and he'll attest to that. A synagogue isn't a synagogue unless it lives by that standard. And we lived by that standard. I'd like to thank everybody for making this day happen. And I have to say to you that I've been the luckiest man alive. And I'll just conclude by saying that, yes, I do have 4 children, 1 here today, 10 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and who knows, there could be some coming along that I don't know about. Every day, my wife and I ended our day with Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. If anything positive comes out of this event, think about that and include that in tonight's prayers. And then when you wake up in the morning, say it again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. The wheelchair is just for effect.
To which I say, I'm really glad I'm not in show business, because I can't top that. Our next inductees are Ellie and the late Charlie Miller of Scarborough. Charlie was, and Ellie continues to be, integral members of the Jewish faith community here in Greater Portland. Having met and married while students at Colby College, they spent 7 years in the Waterville area, where Charlie was an English teacher at Lawrence High School in Fairfield. There, he created and coached what became a state champion debate team. Ellie acted as the sole teacher and B'nai Mitzvah tutor from the 23-student Beth Israel Congregation Hebrew School. She also served as the first woman cantor for high holiday services. They moved to Portland in 1976 so Charlie could attend law school. They remained, both epitomizing the very best of civic engagement and leadership, not only in the Jewish community, but in the legal community as well, and the Southern Maine community generally. In the words of one current laureate member of the Hall of Fame, over many years, nothing ever happened in the Jewish community in Portland without their involvement. Charlie and Ellie each served as presidents of Temple Bethel here, and Charlie led the campaign efforts to build the temple's endowment, which he continued to serve as endowment committee chair until his death. The fund has recently been renamed in his memory. Rabbi Emerita Carolyn Braun of Temple Bethel called Charlie and Ellie stalwart members and added for Charlie and Ellie, quote, "It was all about the children." Ellie served as the first chair of TBE's Hebrew School and as president of Levy Day School's board. She went on to serve as director at Levy and and for many years tutored B'nai Mitzvah students for both TBE and Bet Ha'am. Charlie taught music to younger students for more than 30 years, being remembered for the joy and creativity he brought singing and playing guitar. For both Charlie and Ellie, though it was about much more than children, they stepped forward to meet whatever the need might be. For Ellie, that meant agreeing to take over as executive director of the Jewish Community Alliance 3 years before its new building opened on Congress Street. Ellie answered the sudden call without hesitation and filled the void successfully until the new JCA building opened and a new executive director could be hired. During the entire process of planning, approval, and construction of the facility, Charlie expertly represented the JCA, addressing and overcoming numerous legal and other issues that arose with the city of Portland, Libbytown area neighbors, and other interested parties during the real estate transaction and construction. Some have said the new JCA facility would not have been built but for their efforts. The JCA dedicated all the mezuzahs in the building in Charlie and Ellie's honor. In the legal community, Charlie was an enormously influential attorney, nationally recognized and celebrated. He was a leader within his law firm, Bernstein, Schur, Sawyer, and Nelson, serving for 10 years as the firm's chief executive. Charlie and Ellie turned their community leadership skills and their ethic of compassion to aiding in the quest for justice for Maine citizens of all faiths who are unable to afford legal representation. Through Ellie's work as assistant director of Pine Tree Legal Assistance for 28 years, and Charlie's leadership support for the Campaign for Justice, the Muskie Fund for Legal Services, the Frank M. Coffin Fellowship in Family Law, and numerous fundraising efforts, their participation helped ensure that Maine citizens have access to justice in civil legal matters. Last year, Pine Tree announced a new initiative named the Eleanor and Charles Miller Rural Justice Fellowship, aimed at improving access to civil legal services for residents of Aroostook, Hancock, and Washington counties. Ellie continues to serve on Pine Tree's board as treasurer and as treasurer of Hope Acts, an organization providing housing and other services to immigrants. At the time of his death, Charlie was a member of the board of the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, where he had served as chairman from 2016 to 2019. For both Ellie and Charlie, their professional and community volunteer lives were critical, but at the core of their beings was their love for each other and the family they created together, 3 children and their spouses, and 6 grandchildren. We are pleased to welcome to the stage Ellie Miller.
Thank you. I would be much happier if Charlie was standing here with me. And you'll hear a lot. That was very lovely, Irwin. I wasn't going to go through it all, but this is a little redundant, but please humor me. Anyway, I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to the committee for the decision to honor Charlie and me in this quite amazing and frankly overwhelming way. I also want to acknowledge David Warren and thank him for the beautiful words he wrote in his nomination. I really don't know if I would have accepted this honor if Charlie were still alive, and I don't know if he would have wanted to either. Both of us always felt it was important to do what we did because it was important to do it. Neither of us ever looked for the credit. That said, since Charlie's death, it has become important to me for there to be memorials for him of one kind or another, so that I, along with others, will continue to remember who he was and what he did. Obviously, he would have spoken here differently than I am. We would have heard his great booming voice say something, and it would have sounded much more significant just because of his fabulous delivery. He would have made all of us laugh, and we would have heard that wonderful, deep, joyous laugh. Alas, that's not the case. Whenever I think of the two of us, I am reminded of the great Hasidic master, the Baal Shem Tov quote, talking about each person having their own light. But when two souls that were meant to be together find each other, their lights will flow together to form a single brighter light. I always felt that that was true for us. From the very beginning of our relationship, Charlie and I were engaged first with the Jewish community and always with Tikkun Olam, as the song we taught our high school class says, Fixin' the World. We met at a Colby Hillel service where Charlie acted as the rabbi, announcing pages, making comments, and telling us when to sit and stand. Charlie grew up in a Reform congregation and I grew up in a conservative one. As far as I was concerned, Charlie did everything wrong at that service. Having us all sit when we should have been standing, and having us all stand when we should have been sitting. After complaining for a while to a friend about how terribly he had done things, I said to myself, this is not the right way to behave. You need to tell him, not other people. So I did. And we argued, discussed maybe, religion for about 40 minutes, and the rest, as he would say, is history. As Erwin just said, Charlie was a high school English teacher at Lawrence High School in Fairfield, Maine for 7 years before we moved to Portland. I'm proud to say that he made a huge difference to that community, where he was a class advisor, began and coached a championship debate team through which several of his students obtained full 4-year scholarships to universities, including Williams College, and where the person who he helped with that, who's been a Jesuit priest for about 40 years now, maybe more. He's getting ready to retire. But I just got to see him the other day, and he said to me, you know, I never would have gone to Williams if it hadn't been for Charlie, and that how much he thinks of him. And where the yearbook was lovingly dedicated to him. We were actively involved in the Jewish community in so many ways, including singing together, teaching, and organizing a youth group before moving to Portland so Charlie could attend law school. And I also want to mention the Whites, who I saw, who are here for, there they are. So David, believe it or not, was Charlie's student at Lawrence High School. I never would have expected to see him today. And he and Deborah were married at Lorimer Chapel in Waterville, and the relationship between his student David and Charlie was so close that David asked Charlie to be one of his ushers, which he was. And we all remember, the three of us anyway, remember that. Knowing that today's booklet highlights many details, I'll just note briefly that Charlie was never afraid to speak up compellingly on any issue on which he thought someone needed to take a stand. He loved to give, whether it was helping out with Mark's, our son's Cub Scout troop, singing for Hebrew school kids, chairing an endowment committee for Temple Bethel, with a myriad other things he did for organizations, ranging from the Gulf of Maine Research Institute to Hope Acts. For me, I went to work at a law firm when Charlie started law school, because in my naivete, I hoped that by gaining a minimal understanding of the world that he was entering, it would keep us connected to each other. I have no idea whether that had anything to do with the loving, wonderful marriage we had for 54 years, but I do know that that was the key that led me to work at Pine Tree Legal, which gave me a career that was challenging and fulfilling, and one that for sure was premised on Tikkun Olam. In this case, evening the playing field for accessing justice, or as Pine Tree's executive director, Tom Fritchie, expressed it the other day, our work helps us put into practice our hopes and dreams of how the world could be better. Within my Jewish community volunteer work beyond board work in the past, the place that I found myself most often is within the broad category of education. As I teach kids, preparing them for B'nai Mitzvah, I focus on the fact that Judaism is an incredible gift we have been given. Its tenets, its values, its stories, its traditions, the list goes on and on. I don't know how well my 12-year-olds hear that message amidst the hard work that B'nai Mitzvah preparation is. but I'm always gratified when I get inklings from them much later, after I've been doing this for more than 50 years, that the work that they did as preteens has made a difference for them and the families they later established. And I love the community that has developed within the adult Torah class that I teach for the JCA. I've been teaching that since before the pandemic. My goal was to read every line of Torah, beginning at the beginning with Bereshit and ending with the last word of Deuteronomy. We finally begun the 4th book of the Torah and are currently in Numbers, coincidentally in this week's Parsha, Naso. As everyone who knows me is aware, when I'm asked to speak, I do like to connect some strand from the week's Parsha or chapter, and the strand I pick up here is the blessing it contains. God told Moses to tell Aaron these words so that he could bless the people. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal turn towards you and be gracious to you. May the Eternal raise God's face towards you and give you peace. I think the blessing is relevant here because the blessing was for the entire community, not for an individual, but for everyone within the community. Here we are, a community that strives to do good things for the whole, for everyone. I am grateful to be part of this community. I am grateful that Charlie and I were able to raise our children here. Children now fully grown with families of their own, who continue to give back to their communities and who continue to make us proud. I thank them and the spouses and grandchildren who were able to be here for coming, and I also thank my sister and her husband for making the trip and wanting to share in this meaningful event. Thank you all.
You know, Ellie said in her introduction that I was somewhat redundant in some stuff. Let me let you in on a little secret. One of the things that I find personally inspiring about doing this each and every year is there's not one of these introductions I haven't cut back for time purposes. It's amazing what folks have done here, and we can only share really a part of it for you. Our next inductee is Edith Pagelsen, most recently of Falmouth. Edith Lucas Pagelsen, a Holocaust survivor, public speaker, and educator, was born in 1926 in Worms, Germany. Her earliest years were idyllic. Her family lived in an openly Jewish life in Worms' thriving 1,000-year-old Jewish community. Her neighbors and friends were both Jews and non-Jews. For at the time, much like in recent decades in America, she'd tell her students socially there was no distinction. That ended on Kristallnacht, November 10th, 1938, the night of shattered glass, when Edith was 12 years old. Their family hardware store and apartment above it were broken into and ransacked. The memory of her parents' mattress thrown onto the street, its feathers swirling in the chill air, remained vivid in Edith's mind all her life. In Theresienstadt, her father perished from the lack of medical care, and Edith witnessed the deception of the sheep-like International Red Cross by the Nazis who deviously crafted a false facade of civil treatment of the incarcerated Jews. At Auschwitz, Edith faced Joseph Mengele and convinced him that she and her mother could work. He told Edith to bring her mother and sent them both to the gas chamber, but the gas chamber door malfunctioned in what Edith perceived as one of a series of miracles that led to her and her mother surviving the Shoah. Edith, her mother, and her future husband, Henry Lucas, immigrated to America in 1947. Here, their relatives told Edith she should forget the past, but Edith knew the gift of life that she and those she loved had been granted required she share her story. She actively engaged with the communities where she lived, from New York and Southern California to Maine, as well as with Holocaust remembrance agencies like Steven Spielberg's Shoah Foundation, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and the Maine Holocaust and Human Rights Center, to which all the profits from her memoir, Against All Odds, A Miracle of Holocaust Survival, now in its 14th printing, are donated. Sharing her story as a living witness to the Holocaust became Edith's life's mission. She spoke frequently at schools, churches, and synagogues, chambers of commerce, and community associations. Though small in stature, Edith nonetheless was a commanding presence when she spoke. Her humble demeanor and calm voice in relating the greatest of horrors brought her audiences to rapt attention. Edith passed away at the age of 97 on the morning of October 7, 2023, during the very hours that Hamas perpetuated the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Edith would have seen this tragedy as a call for greater vigilance, and especially for expanded education. To her family and friends, Edith was our Shemus, the candle used to light the other Hanukkah candles. Through her example, her deeds, her dedication to Holocaust education, and her inextinguishable love, she embodied the truth that one can always give light to others without ever diminishing one's own. Accepting the award for Edith are her son and daughter, Jerry Lucas and Ruth Feingold.
Thank you all to the Jewish Hall of Fame and its wonderful honor to Mom. And use the mic, okay. And thank you to Dan and Julie Kagan for recognizing Mom's work and nominating her for this award. Sorry. Okay, the engineer. Okay. I'd like to share a little story that used to make us chuckle. When Mom moved to Maine, she quickly got involved with the Speakers Bureau at the Holocaust and Human Rights Center in Augusta. She strongly believed in sharing her story of survival to high school and middle school students in Maine. Mom was their age during the Holocaust. She felt it very important to educate the next generations. Mom was asked to speak at a ladies' lunch and learn group at a church in Pownell. She happily accepted. We arrived to a very gracious and curious group of women who welcomed us with lunch. When it came time for Mom to speak, this is how the introduction went. This is Edith. She's a full-blooded Jew. We exchanged glances and tried not to show any emotion, but deep down we both knew it came from a place of goodness and not one of hate. And just like that, Mom knew her work to educate and share her story of survival was even more important than ever, and it still is to this day.
Some believe it is only great power that can hold evil in check, but that is not what I have found. It is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. So in honor of my grandmother and all those who suffered at the hands of Nazis, spread love, not hate. I love you, Grandma. Thank you.
There are two cliches that encapsulate how Mom lived her life. To her, the glass was always half full. She was always the optimist. When life dealt her lemons, she made lemonade. In that spirit, she used the horrors she endured as an opportunity to educate and enlighten school children and adults alike. She didn't allow those horrors to dominate her life or deprive her of many happy years of life. Mom was a private and humble person, never comfortable being the center of attention. However, I know she would have been very proud and honored to receive this recognition today. Our family certainly is very proud and honored as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah Feingold. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Excuse me. Thank you so much for being here today, for honoring my grandmother in the Jewish Museum Hall of Fame. For those who knew her, you didn't just see her positivity, you felt it. Sorry. I can do this, okay. It radiated from her. That sweet little wave of hers, it wasn't, shoot. It wasn't just cute, it was a sincere, welcoming hello. And when you spoke with her, you knew she was really listening. She genuinely cared. Sorry. About what was going on in your life. She had this way of making you feel important, like you mattered. My whole life, my grandmother called me her allerbestes. That's German for the very best. And let's be honest, between that and being an only child, my ego probably didn't need the extra boost. But her belief in me meant everything. Because of the encouragement and, yes, the discipline she and my family gave me, I was able to succeed in most of what I tried. And on the days when things didn't go quite right, she made sure I knew I was still her allerbestes. As I got older and learned more about her story, her survival during the Holocaust, I realized just how lucky I am, lucky to be here. Lucky to be speaking with you today. Lucky to have her as my grandmother. I am the product of determination. I am the product of resilience, and I am the product of a woman who, no matter what she had been through, still chose to see the good in everything, a quality I'm still working on myself. The truth is, I would be nothing without my grandmother. And with time, I've come to understand something else. She called me her allerbestes, but really, she was the very best. I am forever proud to be her granddaughter. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Judge Abraham Rodman, the first Jew named to the Maine Superior Court and the first Jew named to the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. Abraham Rodman, a noted Bangor attorney and Navy veteran of World War I. Judge Rodman was active in the Jewish community, past president of B'nai B'rith in Bangor and the first president of Bangor's Jewish Community Center and Hebrew School. Abraham's son Paul would also go on to serve on the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. Judge Rodman, after graduating from the University of Maine Law School, began his career founding the firm Rodman Winchell, where he practiced as an attorney with his son Gerald until he was appointed to the bench. Abraham spent over 6 years as a judge at the State Superior Court in Augusta before being appointed to the State Supreme Court. Rodman was a member of Temple Beth Israel in Bangor, as well as a leader of the B'nai B'rith Pine Tree Lodge, dedicated to ensuring the security of Jewish people and combating anti-Semitism. He additionally served on the 40th Anniversary Committee for Bangor Hebrew School in 1947. Abraham and his wife Irene bore 3 sons, Robert, Gerald, and Paul, and 8 grandchildren. And accepting the induction for Judge Rodman today are his grandsons Bert and Sam Rodman.
Hello, everyone. How's my microphone working? All right? Okay. My grandfather, Justice Abe Rodman, is remembered in the legal world as a fair, no-nonsense jurist and the first Jew to sit on the Maine Supreme Court. But in our family, we remember him for a few other things, too, like the time he turned down an invitation to join a long-standing anti-Semitic country club in Bangor. According to family legend, which, like all good family stories, has probably gotten spicier over the years, he declined with a well-placed go to hell or something even saltier. Either way, the message was clear. Abe Rodman didn't join clubs that didn't want him in the first place, especially when they only came knocking because they needed Jewish money to stay afloat. I remember seeing him once in court, robed in black, perched high on the bench, looking every bit as serious, imposing justice. It was hard to square that with the same man who on Sundays would stand in his backyard grilling salmon, sipping bourbon from a heavy glass tumbler, while my grandmother Irene was inside grinding herring and chicken liver like a Jewish iron chef. 3 years before his untimely passing in 1970, Grandpa took me and two grandmothers on a trip for my bar mitzvah, a grand tour, destination Israel. We hit London, Paris, Rome, and Athens, and then the 6-day war broke out. So instead of Jerusalem, we just got more lamb sandwiches. Stranded in Greece with time to kill, Grandpa came up with a plan. Let's go shopping. We headed out from the Hotel Grand Britannia and wandered into the Agora, a lively market full of food, spices, and cheap souvenirs. That's when I spotted it, a plastic replica of the Parthenon. Not exactly fine art, but it had a plunger on it that triggered a little sideshow of ruins. To a 13-year-old, this was basically the Louvre. I turned to Grandpa and asked him if I could have it. He noted, sure, let's talk to the guy. The shopkeeper wanted 100 drachmas. I was ready to pay full price. Grandpa, not so much. Too much, he said, I'll give you 25. The shopkeeper looked personally offended. He countered with 70. Grandpa said 35. The guy wouldn't budge. And then came the master class. Grandpa leaned down over beside me and said, we're leaving. Leaving, I said, but I really like it. Don't look back, he whispered, just walk. So we walked, and I was heartbroken. And then, just like in a movie, the shopkeeper came running after us, waving the souvenir in the air. Okay, 35 drachmas. Victory. That little Parthenon sat on my shelf for years, and with it came a lesson I've never forgotten. In negotiations, the person who wants it more is always at a disadvantage. But if you're willing to walk away, even from a tiny plastic temple, you've got the upper hand. On behalf of my brother Sam and my other brother Jim and my cousins Andrew, Carol, Margot, Dana, and Lisa, thank you for honoring our grandfather with his Hall of Fame induction. He taught us many things, how to live with dignity, how to stand up for our values, and apparently how to get 65% off a Greek souvenir stand. Thank you very much.
Our next inductee is Judge Louis Skolnick of Lewiston. A civil rights activist and former associate justice of the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. He passed away October 10th of last year at the age of 101. Born February 14th, 1923, his family's Valentine baby, the justice affectionately known as Lou or Louie, was a Navy veteran, a lawyer known for his fierce commitment to the rights of the marginalized, a justice on the Maine Supreme Judicial Court noted for his important dissents, a passionate lover of animals, a lifelong jazz sax player, and a devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He was the youngest of 5 children, born to Julius and Bessie Skolnick, Jewish immigrants who fled Kovno, Lithuania in 1904 to settle in Lewiston. There, Julius Skolnick ran a dry goods store with his brother Kalman. Raised in a kosher household, Skolnick often recalled how his mother would send him to school with unwrapped potato latkes in his pockets, which he would eat covered in lint. Upon graduation from Lewiston High School, Skolnick enrolled at Bates College, and after the attack on Pearl Harbor, enlisted in the Bates V-12 naval program. In the final year of the war, he served as an officer on an amphibious landing ship, participated in the landings in the Philippines and occupation duty in China, and ultimately commanded the ship. After the war, Skolnick returned to Bates, completing his BA in 1947. He then attended Georgetown University Law Center in Washington and earned his law degree in 1952. On the advice of a professor, he returned to his hometown of Lewiston to practice. Skolnick's legal career was defined by his steadfast commitment to civil rights and civil liberties. After opening his own private practice in 1957, Skolnick served as corporation counsel to the city of Lewiston, counsel to the Central Maine branch of the NAACP, chair of the Maine Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and a member of the Governor's Task Force on Human Rights. In 1968, after serving for 16 years as the only cooperating attorney in Maine for the American Civil Liberties Union, Skolnick helped organize and became the first president of the ACLU's Maine chapter. Before his judicial appointment, Skolnick was active in the local branch of the NAACP and also served in the mid-1960s as chairman of the Maine Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, where he fought to end housing discrimination, including against black service members stationed at Dow Air Force Base in Bangor, who were being blocked from renting or buying adequate housing. In 1974, Governor Ken Curtis appointed Skolnick to serve as a justice on the Maine Superior Court, where he was eventually named presiding justice for Region 2. As a trial court judge, Skolnick was obligated to ride circuit, as they used to say, hearing cases around the state. During these month-long sojourns, he brought his golden retriever, Sarah, to keep him company. Sarah would remain in chambers during the trials, but Skolnick joked with the attorneys that 1 bark meant guilty, 2 innocent, and 3 a mistrial. In 1983, Skolnick was elevated to the Maine Supreme Judicial Court, where he served until he retired in 1988. Though Skolnick won numerous awards throughout his career, his greatest pride came in 1989, when, in recognition of his lifetime commitment to civil liberties, he was presented with the Roger Baldwin Award, named for the late founder of the ACLU. That same year, the Maine Civil Liberties Union established the Justice Louis Skolnick Award, which annually honors members of the legal community who have demonstrated an outstanding commitment to the protection of civil liberties. Skolnick himself received the eponymous honor for lifetime achievement in 2019. In addition to his legal pursuits, Skolnick was a passionate and accomplished jazz musician, playing tenor sax and clarinet throughout his life. As he loved to say, I wasn't a hanging judge, I was a swinging judge. He played in various dance bands through his high school and college years and even had a jazz trio on board his ship in the Pacific. Later in life, he formed the Golden Years Trio, which often entertained residents at local retirement homes. Louis Skolnick was married for 67 years to Paula, a beloved high school English teacher who passed away in 2018 after a long illness. During her final years, Skolnick devoted himself to her care, embodying the love and commitment that defined their life together. Accepting the induction for Judge Skolnick is his daughter, Nina.
Good afternoon. On behalf of my sisters, Donna and Julie, and our entire family, I extend our deepest gratitude to the organizers of this event for including our father, Louis Skolnick, in this special recognition. Warm thanks to Steve Brin for your incredible kindness and help over the past few months, and to Jessica Lantos for nominating our father for this honor. My father's awareness of the sacred Jewish responsibility of tikkun olam was instilled in him at an early age, growing from his mother's oft-repeated phrase, "Do the right thing." Lou would conjure her spirit every time he imitated her heavy Yiddish accent saying, "Do the right thing," and passed on that same message to us. Those words carried a profound weight, evolving into a broad sense of responsibility that became the bedrock of his character. As a lawyer, Lou became a champion for civil liberties and civil rights, making a lasting difference for the people of Maine by helping create a place that upholds fairness, inclusion, and dignity for all. On the bench, he was a servant of the court, setting the highest standards of fairness, integrity, and compassion. Whether in his professional sphere or private life, Lou always prioritized human connection, an inclination born from deep compassion from which all his actions flowed. Early in his career, he became known for returning retainer fees, asking clients to pay what they felt his service was worth, and often accepting only half of that amount. He took on personal injury cases so he could afford to handle pro bono work for causes he believed in, especially civil liberties cases, when he was the only cooperating attorney in Maine for the National ACLU before there was a local affiliate. In divorce cases, he often worked not to separate couples, but to help them reconcile. As a judge hearing custody cases, he invited children into his chambers where his dog Sarah, who regularly accompanied him to court, would immediately put them at ease. With their guard down, the children relaxed, trusted him, and spoke their true feelings, giving Lou the insight he needed to rule in their best interests. These stories, though absent from public records, speak to the everyday human connections that defined Lou's life. He often received letters from jurors who said their time in his courtroom changed how they saw the law, not just because of his legal rulings, but because they witnessed someone who embodied integrity, fairness, and compassion, inspiring them to live differently. To our family, he was a funny, joyful, generous, protective, and abundantly positive father and husband, raising us with a strong awareness of what fairness meant. And teaching us the values of empathy and kindness. We also recognized he was a father in reserve to many others, as one close friend lovingly put it, confirming that there was enough Lou to go all around. A spiritual and ethical anchor, he was an active member of his congregation in Lewiston, Auburn, and in Andover, relishing opportunities to lead services, deliver a Shabbat morning drash, or perform a funeral service when the need arose. Scrupulously honest, he admitted mistakes, making him all the more human and beloved. His zest for life radiated in his love for our mother, his grandchildren, extended family, and those who cared for him. He loved all those who were furry and four-legged, even fighting for the rights of a dog in his condo complex whose owner was asked to give him up. A passionate and lifelong musician, he played tenor saxophone and later formed the Golden Years Trio, bringing joy and healing to seniors. These passions combined to make his life a model worthy of aspiration. Lou's capacity to love extended far beyond family and friends to an expansive, inclusive love, embracing those on the margins, those without voice, for whom he was a tireless champion. In a way that honored his mother's entreaty to do the right thing, Lou Skolnick lived out the sacred responsibility of tikkun olam, the call to repair the world, through a deep belief that we must not live only for ourselves, but care for the dignity of every human being. Thank you.
All right. You know, I'm going to exercise the MC's prerogative here and ask before I make some closing remarks. And once again, let's hear it for all of the individuals who are being inducted today. Now take a good look around this sanctuary, this beautiful place, this Maine Jewish Museum, which houses Etz Chaim Synagogue. This place was nearly lost due to Portland's changing demographics, but in the last 30 years or so, it has made a spectacular comeback. There are many people to thank for that, but one man who has watched and made it all happen is Gary Berenson. Brought here as a child to help make a minyan, Gary became a lay leader of the congregation and eventually its ordained rabbi, and he's going to join us now for a closing benediction. Rabbi?
I feel like Steve Brin. Where's my glasses here? It's been a wonderful afternoon's program and a little long, and I thank you all for your patience and your indulgence. My words will be very brief. As we come to the end of this year's Maine Jewish Museum Class of 2025 induction into the Hall of Fame, I offer my congratulations to all of the new inductees. May we carry with us the spirit of these great individuals who have been honored here today. May we be inspired by their legacies of courage, by their vision and their service. May we continue to build upon their achievements and blaze new trails of our own. And may we never forget that as members of the Jewish community, we are all bound by a deep and abiding love of tradition, learning, and compassion. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to all of those who have made today possible. Today, perhaps more than any other time in my life, we pray that the blessings of peace and joy be with us always, and we say, Amen. Thank you all for coming.